lecture series. Just out of curiosity, how many of you are new to this lecture series, your first time coming to one? Great. Make sure you come back to the next one. So we advertise it.
They're really good.
So tonight we have a program that's going to be unique. Braceros in the Napa Valley and in St. Helena. Just for those of you who don't have the background on this, after the U.S. entered World War II, many agricultural workers had left to go and fight in Europe or wherever, and to avoid a food shortage crisis in the United States, the government of the United States asked Mexico if they could help us with labor to get the harvest in. And so that was the arrangement between the two countries. And the first group of 76 braceros arrived in the Napa Valley on May 1, 1943. And their numbers grew to more than 1,000 by 1944. The Bracero harvest program was highly successful, and the Helena Star wrote that the braceros saved our bacon. The braceros also brought cultural diversity to St. Helena, introducing the locals to new language, food, and culture, music. The St. Helena Star thanked the braceros as agricultural soldiers from our beloved sister republic south of the border. Tonight we're happy to have with us Senora Rosaura Segura and Senor Aurelio Hurtado to share their unique personal perspectives on the braceros in the St. Helena area. Both are well-known and well-loved in St. Helena and have made much appreciated contributions to our Mexican-American community and the whole community at large. So the title tonight is Braceros Who Settled in St. Helena and Their Legacy, a conversation with Aurelio Hurtado and Rosaura Segura.
Thank you for being here. It's a topic that we are very proud of because we're here. We were able to make a living, and to a certain degree, we're successful at what we do in our lives. But besides being successful, we've been able to help the community at large with what we do. When Miriam called and said, "Hey, do you want to give a talk about braceros?" And I said, yes. And then I thought about it, and I'm going, well, it's been done before. So what is going to be different about this conversation that we're going to have today? And then she said, well, let's do something about legacy. The children of the braceros who settled here in St. Helena. Because there's many like us in the valley, but here we are in this beautiful little town that it's called St. Helena. I couldn't think of anybody else to be with me tonight other than Senor Aurelio Hurtado, because he's an icon in the community. I mean, he's one of the founders of Clinic Olay. He was just at one of the big fundraisers that were going on this weekend to celebrate the golden wedding or birth of Clinic Olay. So that is something to really be proud of. Besides that, in the days, he marched with Cesar Chavez, and he worked for the California Human Development Corporation. Which was all over the United States, California, Washington, Oregon, Hawaii, and he was in charge of programs that benefited directly to farm workers. At the time of the Bracero program, he lived at the border, so he was witness to all the gatherings of the workers that were applying and hoping to get one of those permits to come into the United States. And he has first-hand knowledge of, there were thousands and thousands and thousands of men looking for this permit to come into the United States. Also, The National Museum of American History, part of the Smithsonian, they had a traveling exhibit. It was called Bittersweet Harvest. And it's bittersweet because of all that they had to go through. Sweet because it gave them opportunity. It meant opportunity in spite of all the difficulties. So the way we're going to do this, he's going to tell us about what was happening at the border, how the recruitment, the process, and what I call the medical exam. And then I will talk about the legacy of the Braceros in St. Helena. So
Arad, excuse me, I'm going to stand.
I may do the same thing later.
I think I was requested to talk about what I remember from the Bracero program. She explained some of the things that happened in those years, but there were more than Bracero program that there was needed in Estados Unidos, the nation, because of the war. I don't have. I was too young to be a bracero, but all my family, my brothers, my father, they came during the war, and my father worked for 2 years. They came here in I think they 42, 43, 1943, just when the war was beginning. And she worked for 3 years, 2.5 years in Michigan, in Chicago area. My father, during the Revolution of Mexico, my grandfather moved from Mexico to Texas in San Antonio because of the war. And the revolution in Mexico was very hard, hitting a lot of families, and he decided to went and there he went over there for about 5 years, and then they came back to Mexico. During those years, my father had an opportunity to went to school in San Antonio. So he was speaking very good English. So when he came to, again, during the war in Chicago, it was when he was working, he didn't do any work in the agriculture because of he speak the 2 languages. They find a good job in Chicago. They stayed there until the end of the war. After that, they finished. They come back to Mexico. My brothers, 4 brothers, they come to Braceros too. They did work in the agriculture and in different parts of the different states and the nation. And that's what I remember, all the histories of they bring back when they come back home, they used to tell us, all the things that they went through. Since the beginning of the Bracero, when the 2 nations signed the contract, I don't know why they call it Braceros. because people were coming and going before and after the war, but they would just come in without any name or anything. But there was an agreement between the two nations. What I understanding is that during the war, in the beginning, everybody in the state in the states were very willing to go and register for for go and fight the war. My understanding is that those years, the United States depends a lot on the agriculture, just on the fields, as the same thing today now. So they came and they work in all the crops and the areas, and most of the estates. And I remember, what they told us when they come back. First of all, there was people that came from all over the states and Mexico to trying to get a contract to come here as a bracero, they call it now. I remember I saw thousands and thousands of people coming and staying in line for days, weeks, waiting to see if they were able to be contracted to come to and work here in the United States. A lot of histories that my brothers used to talk about it, the way they were treated because of the so many people that trying to come over. They had to stay in line for weeks and weeks waiting. They were moving too slow, and people were coming too fast, to try to get the contract. So those days, the ones that they were selected to be a bracero, once they were accepted, then one thing that I remember, my brothers telling us that before they can cross the line or get in the train to come to the United States, they have to be in line, and they ask them, take all your clothes out of, and then walk, and they will spray it before they can, before they can approve that. A lot of them, they said, we was gonna say no, we're not gonna do that. I said, it's okay, it's up to you. If you don't go through the process, you can go home. So most of the people that was, they just get everything, put your clothes here and walk. And before they know, they were spraying. And then they move in, and then they can put the clothes again and go to the train or whatever they're going to be, to go to work. But and the reason that people say, well, if you don't want to go through the process, like I said, you can go back. So most of them, they say, okay, that's fine, we can do that. That didn't happen with my father, because like I say, he never worked in in the fields or anything. They would work in a big factory in Chicago. I was very young and I don't understand too much about why they have to send braceros to this nation. But then when I started reading some books and history, one of the reasons was that, like I say, all the men in this nation, they were drafted to go to the war. Most of them, they come from the agricultural areas, states. And then the women, the ladies, take over them, the men, when they were leaving. And then another something, ones were in the war, and the other ones was working to bring the economy, and all the women. And then that's what the two nations got together and signed this agreement for braceros to come over and take over especially the agricultural workers. What I remember, I consider, is that they come over here, so the nation have enough food to eat here in the United States and support the forces in Europe, and that was the main reason. To me, there was a job that was done to make sure that this nation have all the power to fight the war, and also the food be available for them to support that. I remember later reading in books about in Europe the way that people over there during the war, there was not enough food to eat and maintain, the war in it. So to me, the Bracero program was that. But when I think about that, there was more than just contract. There was come over and make sure that all the families in all the nations here in Estados Unidos will have. They have to eat. They have enough food to eat and fight in Europe, and eventually after the war, they went back. The Bracero contract lasted after the end of the war, but because the agriculture demands a lot of the people that come back from the war, they didn't want to go and work in the fields. They say, we're going to fight, and I'm not going to go back in the rancho, my rancho. I say, so that's why the Bracero, even if it was not Bracero program anymore, keep coming back and coming here. So, and one thing that I feel that through all that the Braceros, they come here to help the United States to win the war. Never was recognized, what they did in a way that they support the nation and make sure that every people and everybody in Estados Unidos have enough food to eat and to be able to to won the war. That's my point to me. I mean, what I was reading before now, every time I feel that, yes, I think the Braceros did a good job. It hasn't been recognized the way that they happen. And then the people that come here, no Braceros because there's no contract anymore. But the same people, they will keep coming. And now it's still up to date. I think I've been here in Santa Helena for more than 60 years. And I see a lot of change, especially in the fields, a lot of good things. But still, we are the Latinos, Mexicanos, Latino Americanos, we are the backbone of this industry up to today. And I think in a way, a lot of those things haven't been recognized the way they should be. When she asked me to be part of this celebration or meeting, I said, you know, I'm going to take a chance and I'm going to say the way I feel myself. I think that there's room to be more willing to recognize what the Latin American community has been helping, for years and years, and especially here in Napa. I mentioned, somebody mentioned before we started, he said, are you going to talk about clinical lay? I said, no, this is not a clinical lay. This is Braceros. And I'm very orgulloso. I'm one of the founders of Clínica Olé. And I think everybody knows, the tremendous service. They start in a room like this, not even the half of this hall. And so it was, 50 years. We celebrate the 50th anniversary. So we've been doing a lot of things here in Napa and in California and the whole United States. I'm very glad that, people say, Braceros, I remember, and I said, to me, that was good because my family, and my family también, los conozco a todos, son mis familias, los señores de atrás, y me siento muy orgulloso. Le estaba diciendo a Chava que I think a lot of other things can be done together to bring that point more often. Maybe we can have more talks about the history. El Señor tal vez él fue bracero y a lo mejor fue por...
I was gonna, it's very unfortunate that the slideshow, that the computer is not working, because oh, it is? Okay.
No.
Oh,
Well,
I'm sorry,
that's the lines.
Yeah, these are the line when
I
the
mean,
recruiting.
and you know, people would stay there about weeks and weeks just waiting. And the other thing, you know, there was so much people that if they move either to find something to eat or something, they lost the space. They cannot go back. They have to be back to the first of the line.
And just imagine.
There's a lot of suffering when they come.
Imagine the recruiting happened in rural Mexico. You know, that's what they knew, the field. So come to a place with all these people and into a city, it was very scary.
Right. And that's right, you know, most of the people come from the little towns in Mexico. They were agricultural people. Because one of the things they did when they come in to qualify, they said, let me see your hands. And if they were very, you know, nice, they said, no, you know,
you're not good.
You're not a ranchero.
So that was one of the tests that you had to pass.
Took some test or something and keep touching that so they, when they arrive, say, oh, okay, yeah, you can go through.
Yeah, some people already have their contracts and they're going next. They had ladies working and typing, you know, again, their contracts and their work IDs. And on the exhibit, you know, they were being quoted as saying, trying to make the farm worker or feel good and say, you know, it's okay, nothing's going to happen to you. You're going to work, you're going to a better place. So again, these were people from the field. That's how they knew. Next.
Do you have any idea of how they were screening? I mean, like what they were looking for?
Rough hands.
Oh, rough hands.
Rough hands. Rough hands. They had to know how to work in the field, and that was one of the biggest requirements. And so that's why he's saying that they couldn't leave their place in line, because if they did get back in the 300,000, you know. And so, yes, after.
This is 1956, this is after the war, so the program continued beyond.
Yeah, they continued.
Till 64.
That's what I'm saying, you know, the bracero program was ended, but the people keep coming. Why? Because it's still, they want the men that went to the war, when they come back, they don't want to go to the fields. I mean, they say, you know, why should I go and do the hard work when I went over there and my life in a line? So they don't want to go back in the fields.
Can you imagine? Get your clothes off, hold them on your hands, and that was the medical exam. You know, they were sprayed, they were fumigated with DDT. And in 2017, there was the Bracero Appreciation Day. It was a day of celebration that was put together by the Napa Valley College, and that's when the Museum of Modern History came and placed the exhibit there. We make reference to the first four, and they are the first four that settled in St. Helena. And I'm very proud to say that I call him the tall, handsome one. That's my dad. The shortest one is Oscar de Ado's dad. And he is also a relative, Jose Manuel Saldivar. He was married to my dad's sister. And the other gentleman I am not too familiar with, but he's also from the same hometown. This is my dad's work permit. He got it in 1946. He didn't get his residence until 1962. So during those years, he was coming in and making the rounds, and he was all over the states, in all the agricultural states. He came to the valley. Well, actually, I think he came and he was working in Alexander Valley for Behringer, the Behringer Vineyards. And his contract was over. The Mandavis were looking for hands. So, you know, are you willing to work? Are you willing to stay? So they gave him a job at Krug. And they offered housing, and so that's where they lived when they first came.
So that looks like about a half a year entry permit. Do you know if that was pretty typical in the Bracero program?
It was fairly typical. I believe there was extensions if the season.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
the program.
The contracts. How long were they for?
But yeah, extended for I don't know, quite a few years after the end of the war. Yeah.
And of course, they needed to learn some English so that when they go out into town or what have you, they would at least know what to ask for. I was telling her the other day, they were not allowed to go out on their own. They were always accompanied by somebody, probably their supervisor, the vineyard supervisor, or the field supervisor. And I heard a talk one day, but you know, the supervisor said, okay, we're going into town, what would you guys like to do? What do you want to do? And one of them said, I want to go eat snow. And he's going, you want to do what? Eat snow. You want to eat snow. I don't, there's no any snow around here. But what he really meant was he wanted to eat ice cream. In Spanish, it's nieve. Nieve y nieve. I mean, it's the same thing. Nieve, snow, nieve in the mountains, and nieve at the, yeah. So it was like that. And whenever they needed to go shopping for whatever reason, they were always accompanied.
So if they got another job, like you said, your father did they have to get permission?
Yes.
They couldn't
To
just say,
change,
oh,
yeah, no, to change the employer, they did. And I thought it was a good idea to hone in on 4 families. Actually, there's 5 families that settled in St. Helena. We have the Gallegos family. I am not really sure when Don Nacho, Señor Gallegos, came, but he was working for Behringer. He was sponsored by Behringer for his residency. And then soon after that, he was able to bring his family. So there's Don Ignacio, there's Ignacio Jr., this is Eric, and Ignacio III. Eric graduated from Fresno State in enology, child of mine, yes? Ignacio has his own vineyard management company, so they make a really good couple, and they are producing wine under the Gallegos label. The children came, and most of them were employed in the industry, cellars, bottling lines, the field, and so that's the story. There's Mama Linda and Don Ignacio and some of the other children. We have the Rios family right here. When did you come to settle in St. Helena?
Aquí,
In St. Helena.
en 1960.
He came, he got his residence in 1960, October 24, 1963. That's when he came to St. Helena. He was working in Sacramento. And from there he came to St. Helena. He was working for the Torres family up in the hills. And from there he came to work with Lawrence Wood. And he was there for 48 years. For 48 years. And I'm sorry, how many children are there? Oh, I'm sorry. He's got 7 kids. 3 of them were born here, right? 2 or 3 were born here in the States.
3 girls, 3 younger girls.
The 3 young girls.
I hate to say I'm the oldest.
So his oldest child, Manny, and one of the youngest, Albert, run Rio's Farming Company. It's one of the biggest vineyard management companies in the valley. Is Rafael next?
No.
Oh, Ophelia is next. She and her husband have a cook for hire business. So they do cook for hiring, which I guess it could be catering.
Yeah.
Highly successful Mexican food. Their son went to gourmet school, and so, but unfortunate, he's no longer with them. But they got a lot of good ideas and recipes. So, it's a fusion of food. Raphael went to Davis and got, well, maybe, I don't know. Do you want to speak for yourself? I'm sorry.
I got a degree in landscape architecture and federal law and got my JD there. More recently, I got an MBA from Sonoma in wine business.
So Davis, St. Mary's, and Sonoma. He's currently he's been a trustee for the Napa Valley College for 10 years? Goodness. And he's running for supervisor. Rosa was born here. How can I forget about Lydia? Can we go to the... Lydia. Lydia is one of the girls also. Married Hugo Maldonado. They also have a vineyard management company, but besides that, they also produce wine. They're very successful. They have caves in Calistoga. And you know what they say, everything comes full circle somehow, some wine. They are now using the H2A program to get field help. So, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that Rafael also produces wine, and Manny also produces wine. Manny says Rio's wines, and Rafael says Justicia. Great name for a lawyer, for an attorney, justice. And there he is. In the Bracero celebration recognition event, there was a big parade in Yonkers, and he was the grand marshal for that on that day. The next slide. Señor Gutierrez. Señor Gutierrez also came as a bracero, settled here in St. Helena. I'm sorry I don't have the information as to when he came, but he also raised the family here. And most of them, again, by the industry. Seller. Martha works for the school district. Nena worked for Behringer for a very long time. And the boys, I don't know. Boys are the same. And there's Mr. Oscar de Aro. When did Don Felix, well, he was one of the 4 that we showed before. he worked in the railroad because that's also labor was needed there. So he did that throughout the United States. And he settled here about the same time my dad did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's my dad. Doesn't he make a beautiful picture? No. That's my dad, and that's Oscar in the background, picking grapes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. This is the cover of, this book was published in '74. They did a pictorial history of what was then the wine industry and what St. Helena was and who were the big hitters in wine and so on and so forth. Oscar was Grand Marshal for the parade, the Napa Parade, 2018, I believe. He is the Vice President of Student Services at Napa Valley College. At this event, he does so much. He started having breakfast with educators. He would invite schools and colleges from throughout California. Am I correct? Yeah. And he always gets together, I want to say 200 people. Teachers, administrators, superintendents, anybody that has to do with education, they were there. They'd share ideas on how to teach. They share ideas on the programs that worked, programs that needed to be tweaked to work better. And there's always something going on in education. And those were, a lot of them left feeling renewed and with more ideas, that something new that they learned from this going on. This is his story. We said that was in 2006, correct? There was where is she? Oh, Miriam had him. Was it a solo presentation for Oscar back in 2006?
Yes,
Or,
she was interviewed by the Star.
by the Star?
The Star came out.
Okay. He was adopted, and so his adopted mother and my mother are sisters. So we consider ourselves cousins. We're cousins. We're very close. And he grew up with both families because his biological mother was his uncle, her brother. So his biological mom, So he grew up with both families. This was Papa Chano, and he had his Papa Jose and his Mama Emilia and his mom Juanita. And so, yeah. More of his story. And thank you. So like I said, my dad came in 46, settled here in the early 50s. He was also sponsored by the Mondavis for his residence. He got his residence in 62. In 68, he brought my older sister and one of my brothers who worked, and the rest of the family, we came in 1972. My personal experience was that I didn't know what to do when I came. It was total culture shock, extreme culture shock. And when we came, they lived at the Beckstoffer house. We had the whole bottom floor, and the owner of the house lived upstairs. He was up there in age, and his children worried. They lived in San Francisco. they worry very much about him because he had to go up and down the stairs. So one day he came to my dad and said, I have to leave. Buy the house. Buy the house. You know, I want you to have the house. But by this time, the self-help housing project that was highly controversial, which is called now Kennedy Court. It's off El Bonita Avenue. The houses were almost done, and he said, I wish I could buy your house, but I have a house already, so I can't. And he was selling it for $134,000. Yeah, $134,000 then. And you know, there was a lot of us. Well, I guess family is family, and you go where family is, and you don't think about making investments and you know, further into the future. And so, yeah, that happened, and somebody else bought it. We moved into Kennedy Court in late '72. And I don't know if it's fate, I don't know what it is, but the Gallegos, the Gutierrez, the De Aros, the Seguras, their name was pulled out from the hat, and at Kennedy Court, and so we all.
To get a house, to have the opportunity to buy.
No. Into the housing project, the self-help housing project. They each, their name was pulled out, and they moved into their brand new house. Yes, and so we kind of grew up together. My house was always full of people, because like Señor Hurtado was saying, you know, they kept coming, and like I said, where family goes, is family goes. And everybody in Mexico wants to make the trip north and for a better life. So we always had uncles and cousins that moved in with us until they got their, you know, they made their own way and were able to rent a house or rent an apartment or whatever. So Seve grew up with my mom. We grew up together. And there were times where, you know, okay, so, you know, we got to get ready, and we gotta get lunch ready for tomorrow. We'd buy the loaves of bread, the ham, the lettuce. One would do the mayo, the other one would do the ham, the other would do the lettuce, and so it was a whole ordeal. But we were all happy. Later on, we didn't want sandwiches anymore. We wanted burritos. So we did that. When I came, my younger brother and my dad said, well, you know, it's March. They're going to get school started. School will be over pretty soon. I was supposed to start middle school. And he said, no, you're going to stay at elementary. You know, you don't know anybody. At least you can see your brother's face, and your young brother can see your face and not feel totally out of place. So I started the last year of elementary school, and he was a couple of years behind me. But we lived on Pope Street. The Aros lived at the base of the mountain. Sylvaner was not there. So I used to cry, and I used to tell my mom, I want to go home. And she's like, you're home. Where do you want to go? No, your father. We're a family. We're together. So we'd walk. I'd grab her arm and just remember it's a straight line. And so we'd walk and visit her sister at the base of the mountain. And it was really nice because it was very rural. There was lots of trees, and they had chickens, and so my mom visited with her sister often until Sylvaner came to be, you know, and we couldn't do that anymore. But yeah, let's see. We also worked, my dad got a brother older than me. There's 6 of us older than me to work with him in the vineyards because he said, I'm not going to school. I want to work. So he started with my dad doing vineyard work. Later on, he learned how to drive the tractor and all the farm equipment that is needed. Later on, when my dad was gone, that's what he did. And then he graduated into the cellar and to do labor. And from there, he graduated to cleaning the barrels and maintaining the machinery that make the barrels run, or the pipes and he's still there. So I think he is the only person that has over 40 years of employment at Krug. He's got like 45. And, he's at retirement age. I wish I could retire. My sister got married and moved to LA. My oldest brother couldn't come because he was studying. Other brother came and he started working for Krug, but then with Papa Chano, he moved into, what's the winery that used to be there before Markham? Was it Sunny? No. Was it a co-op? A co-op? Yeah, my brother and Papa Chano started working there, and that's where Papa Chano retired from. So my brother works for Sutter Home right now as a mechanic, line mechanic. I have my own business. I provide immigration services, and 99.9% of my clients are farm workers. And lately, I've been getting young couples. She is a program director with Clinical A. He is operations or finance for one of the big companies. I was involved with migrant farm worker housing, and our program is viewed as a sample. It's one of its kind all over the country. So Napa Valley is very well known for that. Any other state that wants to provide housing for their farm workers are always calling the county because they're owned by the county, but they are operations by California Human Development. They still do that. And that whole thing in itself, it's a story, because a lot of the larger companies said, we cannot provide housing for our farm workers anymore. It costs us too much. When Christian Brothers sold to Hubline, they had a camp right outside of Calistoga. They told the county we were making a lot of noise about the lack of housing. There was a lot of issues going on with the farm workers. And so they called the county, and we were an ad hoc committee. They called us and said, we want to give you the farm worker center, or the farm worker camp. You take it over, you run it, and it's your baby. Same thing with Mondavi, with Robert Mondavi. They had housing for their farm workers, but it was costing them $80,000 a year, and they said, here, county, we'll give you a long-term agreement to rent or to run the farm worker center. Still, there was a lack of housing. We placed yurts at the Silverado Trail, at the county yard where they kept their equipment. And that was no fun, because we got a lot of a lot of media from all over the United States. And they said, this is what the backbone of the Napa Valley, where they live and how they live. So it was a whole, not good for the industry. And that's when Joseph Phelps said, we have some acreage that we would like to donate for migrant farm worker housing. But it was on the Ag Preserve. And the Farm Bureau fought us with tooth and nail and said, you will never get those done. It's not gonna happen, not in the Ag Preserve. You can't have people living there 12 months a year. And those meetings got really heated and yeah. So somebody said, well, let's change it. Just for farm worker housing. They're not gonna be living there full time. They're gonna be part-time residents. But by this time, the industry was on board with the whole program. And the Vintners Association and the Grape Growers Association. So somebody said, okay, so let's put it on the ballot. Or we went to the supervisor said, nope, we're not gonna do it. Nope, it's gotta go to a vote, let the people vote. And so we did, there was Measure L. Monsignor Brinkle, he was our spiritual leader, but he's more the spiritual, I mean, he is a great politician, and he knows how to talk to people, and he uses what he knows very well. So somebody said, yeah, put it to a vote. So they called it Measure L. That was back in 2001, I believe, 2001. And so of course everybody's saying, it'll never pass. It'll never happen, not in the Ag Preserve. It passed by 72% of the county vote. And so that's how the ranch, that's what the River Ranch, that's what the Farm Worker Center is called, River Ranch. Again, it's a lease along, no, they donated the land. And so what Measure L does is it allows 4 additional farm worker centers to be built in the Ag Preserve. People live there 11 months out of the year. They're not full-time residents, just so that we can comply with the requirements of Measure L. And still, there's not enough. There's much more needed to house the vineyard workers. As he mentioned before, this is a beautiful valley. We all enjoy it. And the resorts, the food, everything. But there's the vineyard workers that keep those vineyards looking very sharp and very beautiful and very attractive to people from outside. So I put my little grain in there, and I feel very proud of that. And people ask me, why did you get involved? And I said, well, I remember my dad saying and speaking as to how he lived. And that's not right. So he was kind of like an inspiration for me to do that kind of work. Just the other day, another part of the farm worker centers, we decided they are farm worker centers and not labor camps because it has the wrong connotation. Camps are, or concentration camps. There are other types of camps, but we have farm worker centers in the valley. There was a shortage for the operations of the centers. The growers decided, they're going to tax themselves 10 acres per producing acre. And they said, that will never happen. But, come to understand they are very powerful people, and they have good lobbyists, both in Sacramento and DC, they lobbied and they lobbied, and it passed. So every grower that has producing acreage gets taxed $10. And that helps with the operations of the farm worker centers. And the budget is over $1 million now. Farm workers pay $14 a day for 3 meals, a decent bed, and a place where they can just relax instead of sleeping in the car or under the bridge or anywhere else. I was also a Napa Valley College trustee from 2000. I was there for 4 years. My last year was 2018, so I was elected 2014. And I became president of the board. And I was the first Mexican woman to be so. So anyway, do you have any questions? You have people who came in as braceros and people who did a lot for braceros. And, like I said, I am very lucky and I feel very blessed that my father decided to bring the family and be with us. And he could have easily said, "Oh, I'm leaving the life in the States. You can, but no, he was a very family-oriented man, and I'm glad that he decided to do that, because I don't know what my life would have been like if I had stayed back in Mexico. I'd be a great-grandmother by now. I don't know, but yeah, and there's a lot of us that are here and have done a lot, and I am very glad, and I love to see the fact that a lot of the farm workers' children are decided to go to school and get an education. Now they're everywhere, in county offices, in administrative county offices, at school districts, as counselors, as administrators. And so, I used to say things are changing, but sometimes it's like, the more they change, the more they stay the same. But no, I feel the change, and I feel good, and I think that what drove me to do something more, I remember when I was in high school, and the English teacher said, we're talking about immigration, I suppose, and we were having a discussion, and he said, would you ever have a farm worker over for dinner? Would you allow a farm worker to sit at your table? And I remember this very beautiful blonde girl that said, what? Why? Never. No, I would never allow him to sit at my table and have dinner with me. I said, okay. So it bothered me, but, Monsignor Brinkle, when there was a lot happening with people staying in front of the church, the Sunshine parking lot, at the Safeway parking lot, they had nowhere to go. And so mothers who used to drop their children off here at the parochial school, they would always complain about the man standing there. They felt intimidated. Same thing with people who went to Safeway later at night. They felt intimidated by the farm workers standing by the light where it was safe, and people standing at Sunshine. So he decided, well, they're gonna, I'll house some of them. And I don't remember exactly how long he ran his own farm worker camp. He fed them, provided mattresses, or they some place safe for them to sleep. And one day he says, Rosa, a reporter from the register is coming to interview the men, and he needs a translator, so you're on. And I said, okay, Monsignor, okay, that's will do. So I translated for him, and afterwards, he looks at me and he says, do you think your children will be doing this? And I'm going, I'm sorry? Do you think your children will be standing in front of the church waiting for work? And I'm going, I really didn't know how to address that question. Because I'm going, really? I mean, is that all he sees? He's a reporter. He's been around. So I don't think I answered that question. So.
Do we have any questions for the speakers?
I have a question, Senor Hurtado.
Yeah.
Did you have older family members who came on the Bracero program but returned to Mexico, did not settle in the United States?
No, most of the family, they work here, and when they retire, that's when they go back to Mexico. But they came back after the Bracero program, and they work a lot. I came here in 1956, and I work in Charles Crew for 13 years, and then I found another job working with not a profit corporation. We start providing help for the low-income farm workers. And when the Cesar Chavez came to Napa, we did a lot of work. And then I got hired by California Human Development Corporation. There was a big program across the north part of the California, serving farm workers, and then we extended that to Oregon, and then we went to Washington State, and finally we went to Hawaii, and we covered the whole area. I retired in 2013, and all the programs that we started in those states, they're still under the same name. They're still providing services, especially to farm workers, and providing educational help, job training. So, yeah. And my brothers, when they retired, they went back to Mexico. But they did a lot of work here too.
Anyone else? Yes.
What about medical help? I mean, medical services for people like that live on the land?
Clinical aid comes every so often, and give a lot of preventive. And a lot of them, if they have a toothache, they don't like to go to the doctor because of obvious reasons. So Clinical Aid has a dental clinic as well, so they come and they provide those types of helps, and high blood pressure checkups, and so yeah, that's one of the things that Clinical Aid does as well.
And the people who are living there 11 months of the year, They have to leave for a month?
They have to leave for a month. And sometimes because there's the 3 centers and
Oh,
they
can just move
rotate, yeah,
around.
they rotate.
I have a question myself.
Yes,
I have read that during the Bracero program, that the government of Mexico took 10% of the wages and kept them,
Right.
and then the Braceros got together and sued the government to get it back. Have many people gotten them back then?
They have, and they're still fighting that. See, they were very hard because the families, the person that came over and work and get the savings, they're supposed to give them back when they get back in Mexico. That was part of the agreement. But the two, I don't know if it was the politics of the banks, or they stayed, I mean, for many, many years, were working, and, you know, by the time they finished, you know, okay, you can collect now your money. Most of them, they were dead already. So the families trying to, again, you know, another big time, you know, trying to get all the papers they needed. Finally, I don't think probably 50% or 60% get the money, and never was because they was in the bank, and take years and years, and the money was earning interest. And at the end, I think probably they got, you know, whatever they want to give them, and it was very difficult because most of those braceros, they were there already.
And they were
So, very difficult, very things, but
So do you see change? How do you see change? How is
Hold that thought. My dad passed in '83, and my mother, I think, finally got some money just before she passed, and she passed in 2016. So,
Wow.
yeah.
A long wait.
A long wait, a very long wait. How is the situation better, worse, or what I've seen lately? There are a lot of workers that are coming from southern Mexico, from Chiapas, Oaxaca, and the person that I used last year to pick my 64 tons had a group of them. And it was very interesting because, my goodness gracious, they're hard workers. And, you know, I think that the way that they can go through all that heavy work and not feel it is like, well, I'll beat your crew, you know, and they work really hard. But they spoke their own dialect. I didn't want to ask, but I had to ask. So, and he was driving them from Fairfield to Lake County, and they were all living in one house, and there was like 13 or 14 of them. So, is it any different? I don't know. I mean, the labor is there. Somebody's got to do it. The vineyard management companies got popular because of the immigration reform in 1986, where employers were going to get fined if they had illegal workers. And so they said, you know what? Gallegos Farming Company, it's up to you. We'll hire you to do the work. it used to be that a lot of workers, and they still do to a certain degree, commute from Stockton to the Napa Valley. They leave Stockton really early in the morning, do their job, and head back. But since Lodi became a wine or a grape place, the money that they were spending in paying the ride and the gas, they saved money by working in the Lodi area and that whole area. So is it better? No. There is the ad hoc committee for migrant farm worker housing is still in place. They formed another committee which had to become a nonprofit because they have a golf tournament every year, or this was the first year after 2 years with COVID and so on and so forth. Raise funds also for administration purposes and to buy the mattresses, the pillows, refrigerators, stoves, things that the county really doesn't cover. So, and they were asking me, so what do you think? And I said, well, 180 beds, it's not enough. And even though they get rotated, because it depends on the season, the pruning, the leafing, the suckering, and then the picking. We could definitely use at least two more centers. People say it'll never happen because of the price, the value of the land. And I don't know. It's somewhat better.
Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, and we hope it was informative and that you got something out of the, and yeah.
And our next month in the lecture series is going to be the history of the cameo cinema. And we're going to have Ms. Kathy Buck as our speaker. So that's June 8th, not positive, but you'll get a notice if you're on our email list. So thank you and good
Thank you.
night. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for